Jordan may kick off today's show as a man that holds a 17-0 record with 16 KOs. He's also the WBC USA welterweight champion. Goes by the nickname The Underdog. That's Avious Griffin. Avious, appreciate you taking time to come on today, man.
Thank you for having me, man. Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. Well, first and foremost, man, congratulations. You've recently signed with MVP, Most Valuable Promotions. Walk us through that a little bit. Just walk us through how excited you are to be at this position right now.
Man, I'm just blessed, man. I got to give all thanks to God. And I called it like a year ago. I always said, all right, champ. I always said I wanted to sign with Jake Paul. I just felt like it was a good fit. And God blessed me with the opportunity. I caught the attention, and we made the job get done.
You talked about the fact that you looked at it a year ago and you said, you know what, this is an opportunity I want to pursue. What about Jake Paul? What about MVP was so appealing to you?
No, you got to go take on and watch that. It was just more the fact that we both did it our own way.
Right.
I felt like he's an underdog like me. You know, he's doubted. A lot of people doubt him. They don't take him serious. They call him a YouTube guy. And I call myself the underdog, and I strive on doubt as well. So I just feel like that was just being doubted, proving people wrong, man. You know, just driving off of it and using it as gas.
Avious, you were talking about the fact, obviously, your nickname's the Underdog. I want to know the backstory behind that. Why is it the nickname that you roll with?
You know, it just like I said earlier, it just kind of came with being doubted and you know, being counted out and the underdog strap off doubt, and it's just the name I chose because you know, I went through a lot of obstacles that could have prevented me from being in this point that I'm in, which allowed people to doubt me. But I never gave up on myself, and I always believed that I would be in this position even when I was incarcerated.
Well, man, I want to get into your story because you have one of the most unique stories to get to the position that you're at today. And I want to go all the way back. And so for yourself, you're growing up out there in Tennessee, Chattanooga to be specific. What was it like growing up out there?
Growing up in Chattanooga, man, it was pretty cool, man. I'm pretty a popular guy down there, and everybody know me and stuff like that. I grew up playing football, so I was always like a known person because I was good in football. I was good in boxing, and I always just stood out. My personality and my talent and things like that always had me stand out from the rest. So it was pretty good, man. I grew up with both parents. You know, a lot of people don't get to grow up with both parents. I grew up with my mom and dad in the household,
Mm-hmm.
and you know, I have brothers and sisters and things like that. I'm the youngest brother. I have a little sister, and my mom and dad took in a lot of people, you know, friends, cousins, and stuff like that. So I always grew up with like 8 to 9 people in the house. So I always grew up like very competitive.
All right. Now, when I was researching you, you started boxing when you were about 8 years old, but like you said, you also were a football player. And I believe you even made it all the way to the college level and obviously decided to pursue boxing at that point and all those things. But walk us through that. Like, what was it about football and boxing? Why were those the two sports you pursued at a young age?
I started playing football when I was 4, and I got into boxing around that age, but it was kind of like in and out, in and out. But like once I got to like middle school, 6th grade, I was more consistent with it, and
Okay.
I was doing a lot of amateur tournaments and things like that, and I thought I was going to the NFL, but whenever football go wrong, I always say I'm going to go to the gym. So it was like, it was
Mm.
always like A and B.
Right, right.
Football was A, boxing was B, and I made it all the way to the college level, and I ended up getting suspended for fighting in college,
Okay.
and that just led me back to the gym. I was like, you know what, all right, let's go fight then.
So at that point, would you say that was kind of the turning point for yourself and you said, you know what, boxing is what's meant for me. This is the sport I want to pursue moving forward?
Yes, sir.
All right. Oh, you cut out there. Can you hear me still?
Yeah, I'm still here.
All right. Yeah, you're good now. You came in. Yep. So I want to go into that transition then because as you said, you start at 8 years old boxing, but then you make that full commitment to become all in on boxing at that point in time. If I were to ask you at that moment that you would have become the person that you are today, a 17-0 fighter, WBC USA welterweight champion, signed to MVP, would that have shocked you or is that exactly what you would have expected at that point in time?
I would say like 50 and 50. I
All right.
always believed in myself, and my peers that I grew up with fighting in the amateurs like Devontae and Lubin and Ryan Martin and Dusty Harrison, those type of guys, all those type of guys like turned pro before me. So I always
Right.
felt like I could do it. It just I went off and played college football 2012, 13, 14. So I turned pro late, but I most definitely was confident based off seeing those guys do it and be successful in a pro level, and I was competing and beating those type of guys in the amateur. So I always had the confidence that I could be a pro star.
There was a quote that you said from an interview a little bit ago. It said you started boxing on a Wednesday, you fought amateur for the first time on Saturday, you knocked the kid out. Walk us that story a little bit deeper and kind of break us down what all went down there.
Yeah, man. So I was already like a little street fighter. You know what I'm saying? I
Mm-hmm.
told you I grew up with a lot of brothers, so I was already rough, and I already had a good 1-2 just from the streets. I just had a street
All
fight,
right.
and I had a nice little 1-2. So once they taught me a little technique and how to turn on punches, it was like, all right. My 1-2 got me my first 3 wins. Just 1-2, 1-2 down the pipe. I was just putting them down, boom, 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 boom,
Mm-hmm.
and then I took my first amateur loss, my fourth fight against Tyler Howard, but that was his
Okay.
16th pro fight at the time, which I put up a competitive fight, but which gave me the more confidence that I can do it. And that was the only time he beat me. I fought him 3 times in the amateurs, and he beat me that fourth time, and that was it. But I beat him every year to go to the silver gloves.
Okay. When you look at your amateur career, you have 160 fights, and then you eventually do make that pro jump for yourself. And it was a little bit later transition, as we talked about already. But what led you to the point and said, you know what, I'm ready to make that pro jump. I want to take that jump now. Why did you know at that point in time it was the right moment for that to happen?
Like I spoke on, everyone else that I grew up with in the pro game was having success, so I always just felt like I could do it, and it was just a matter of fact of doing it. Chattanooga, we didn't have a no any pro boxers or no no big brothers. We didn't have nobody like to lead the way or show us.
Right.
So nobody really kind of turned pro out of Chattanooga, Tennessee. I had to move away to like Johnson City, and I turned pro with a small promoter by the name of Roy King, and Scott Vance was my trainer. I knew Scott Vance from the amateurs. He had a Johnson City amateur program, and they had a couple decent fighters that we had a bond with doing the amateur connection on some Tennessee type thing, and they gave me an opportunity, man, to get me in the door, and I just took a full advantage of it.
When you ended up making that jump, was the transition easy for yourself? Like, do you feel like the way you fight, the style you fight, did it make it for an easy transition when you moved up to the pro ranks, or was that challenging, or how would you say the jump
Yeah,
went
when
for
I
you?
was when I was an amateur, they always told me I had a more of a pro style because
Right.
I wasn't a pity pat type puncher. I wasn't
Yeah.
a rabbit puncher type guy. I was hurting guys in the amateurs. I was stopping a lot of guys in the amateurs. So uh, some of the times I did lose was probably because I did get outworked because I had a more of a pro style pace fight style.
Okay. Also, being able to represent Chattanooga, Tennessee. I know we talk about growing up out there, but when you look at just the fact that, as you said, there's not pro fighters, not a lot of great history from Chattanooga, Tennessee. You are that guy now. You can be the guy that so many kids for the next generation, so on and so forth, look up to and say, I want to be like Avious Griffin. What does that mean to you?
It means a lot to me, man, just to be in this position and to motivate and inspire my city, not just my city, but people all around the world, uh, with the things that I overcome and not gave up. And I just feel like that's my calling from God. He just used me as a vessel to
Right.
um to inspire and motivate the world.
I want to go into your pro jump because you should make that pro jump then. And obviously, a little bit before your first debut, your dad passes away. You have a design and you say, you know what, I want to go out there and still fight in this fight. And obviously, you go out there and are victorious in that fight. What gave you the confidence and the ability to still say, you know what, I want to still honor him. I want to get through this tough time. I'm still going to go out there and perform the way you did.
Yeah, because it was like when I made the decision to turn pro, he was just so happy. He was just telling all his friends that my son going pro, my son gonna be the champ, and that's all I could just hear.
Mm,
once he passed away, and he passed away like 3 days
right.
after I signed my first promoter contract. So it was just like his thoughts was in my head, and just of him being so happy that I was turning pro, him just telling all his friends and everybody like my son the champ. He used to always go around like show everybody my hands, like look at his hands so big, man, he gonna be the champ. My dad was crazy like that.
When you go out there, you have a 4-0 start to your career. And then obviously the next portion that happens, which we'll get into in a moment. But when you were at that point, you said, you know what, just to go out there still with all these different things, obstacles occurring for yourself, how were you always able to stay so locked in mentally? How did you always have this ability to say, you know what, I'm going to keep pushing through and I'm going to remain confident and still get the job done, even with all these circumstances going on around me?
Just always having that competitive mindset and the work that just carried from football, from football practice to weight room to
Mm,
5, 6 o'clock morning practices in college, have to go to class, just the discipline and the work ethic always just stuck with me. So hard work and dedication always kind of get you what you want. So I always had that. And only thing I had to do was just get around some high IQ boxers, some people that know the game a little bit more because a lot of people in Chattanooga, Tennessee didn't know that game. So
right.
that's what made me make that transition to Las Vegas to go get around the mecca of boxing.
One of the aspects I want to get into about your family is your mom for yourself and the role she's played in your life. Almost so many interviews I went and checked out that you've done before, you talk about your mom, you talk about the impact she's had on your life and how she's helped get you to where you're at today. Can you take us through your relationship with her and how big she's been for you in your life?
Come again?
Yeah, yeah. Talking about your mom, I know so many different interviews you've done in the past. You've talked about her, the impact she has on your life and helping you get to where you're at. Can you just take us through the impact and the role she's played in your life getting you to where you're at today?
She played a very important role, man. She always believed in me when no one else did. She always told me that I was meant to be special, and that's the reason why she named me what she named me. And when she had my brother, something happened during the pregnancy where the doctors told her that she wasn't gonna be able to have no more kids, and then
Mm,
she had me. So she always felt like I was gonna be great. I was always special. And she always just told me that growing up. She always told me that I'm gonna have to make choices. I'm gonna have to be different. She always told me I'm gonna have to have faith, and she always just inspired those type of things in me, and it just carried along with me, and it got me all the way to this point. She still tell me how much she proud of me, and it just mean a lot to me.
all right, so we go to that point where you're 4-0 in your career. Then all of a sudden, the wrongful murder conviction happens for your life, where you get incarcerated then for 11 months of your life. That obviously is a chaotic, crazy situation. And I just want to ask you, when you are 4-0, this whole thing happens, what was going through your mind at that point in time?
Mm, I was all over the place. Really, I didn't understand it. You know, I didn't understand why I was going through what I was going through at all. So I
Hmm.
mean, I had my moments. I'd be lying if I didn't say I wasn't down. Some days it was like a roller coaster. It was up and down, up and down. But I always kept my faith because I was innocent. But then again, it's a lot of people that's innocent in jail and they don't make it out like I did. So those type of things, and people in the jail and the COs telling me, oh, it's gonna take you 2, 3 years to fight that and this and that, and that type of things. So I used to let other people's fears become my fears some days, but I used to always try to stay positive even in a negative situation, and I feel like God just took me through that situation to teach me things that will protect me for life, as far as like just to choose my friends and to
Hmm.
pay attention to envy and things like that, the type of things that I was knowing around that time. And I felt like everyone was just loved me and was loyal to me around that time, and that wasn't the case. When it was time to gather up bond money, people weren't so fast to come off bond money, but those were the same people that I thought loved me and was so loyal to me. And I had to go through those type of situations to separate the real from the fake. And it wasn't meant for me to prosper at that time because there's no telling what would have happened to me because I would have had everyone around me compared to today. A lot of those people not around me today.
You mentioned a few huge things there, and I think one of the best things that you talk about the fact that you were willing to end up learning in a situation. Obviously, nobody wants to go through that situation, but as you said, you almost learned from it, and it made you in a better position in a certain strange way today where you're at today. So I want to ask about that. How did you have the right mentality to say, you know what? Of course, there are tough days, but you were going to persevere through it. You're going to keep your mind right, and you're even going to learn of how to get better in the situation where you were not, where you set up obviously a situation that you didn't do anything wrong. How did you still come out of that and learn and have the right mentality?
Um, just trying to keep a positive energy. I always believe in law of attraction, and I read a book called The Secret when I was young, and I kind of just lived by that book. So I always just try to control my thoughts because I know how powerful thoughts and the powerful the tongue is. And and then that book, The Secret, I always tell you to try to find a positive situation out of a negative situation.
Right.
So I never tried to let the negative thoughts or the negative situation just become my reality.
At that point in time, if I were happen to know you, in order to ask, where you thought your career was going to go from that point in time. Obviously, a lot of things were up in the air. But if I would have still told you then at that point in time that you were going to become who you became today, would that have shocked you?
No, not really, because when I was in jail, I used to tell a lot of people, man, I'm gonna get out and I'm gonna
Mm,
bounce back and I'm gonna go to Vegas and I'm gonna be who I am today, which it sounded like small talk, jail talk at that
sure.
moment, but you know, other people's opinion never controlled my destiny. I always believed in myself and I always believed in God, and I just felt like that wasn't my destiny.
I want to go a little bit into your faith there because you talked about God many, many times now. How big has your relationship with God been to help you get to where you're at today?
I grew up in the church, man. My mom's a Christian lady. I grew up in the church, and I always believed in a high power, and all those dark nights in jail, I prayed.
Mm,
So for me to get out of jail and not, give thanks to Him and not carry on praying and things like that, would just be flawed.
right.
Those type of things probably would lead me to destruction.
When you look back at your story now and realize that you're in the position you're at today and you've gone through everything you've gone through and you realize that that's a testimony for yourself, a great story that you can impact so many lives with, does that make the position that you're at now feel a little bit more, maybe a little bit more rewarding for yourself now of seeing how you've been able to come through everything to get to where you're at today?
Yeah, it made me embrace the whole situation more because I have people from all over around the world that write me and just tell me that they inspired and how they inspired and how they're a fan of mine based off
Mhm.
my story and just based off my perseverance and how I didn't give up. And yeah, that's the main thing I like about it. Just to being able to be that motivational force in other people's life because I didn't really have that. It
Right.
was just me. You know what I'm saying? I didn't have no dad that boxed. I didn't have no big brother that boxed. I didn't, it's just me. I'm the only boxer in my family. I'm the first one to do this. So, I feel good to be able to be that for other people.
I love that, man. Well, you end up getting obviously out of prison and all the things happen, and you end up returning to the ring almost exactly 3 years to the days when you make your pro debut return for your fifth fight then. Walk us through that then, just knowing that you're going to start your career back again. You're going back into that ring. What was going through your mind after having almost 3 years off at that point?
Man, it was just my first fight back was at home. Um, on my Uncle KK's card. He's a small promoter, but K-South Promotions out of Chattanooga, Tennessee. And when I came home, he had just did like 25 years, and he had just came home. And his dream was to be to be involved in boxing and to be a promoter. And he opened up the door for me to get back in the program. And I did like my first three shows on his platform before I moved to Vegas. And he actually moved with me. He brought me. He came out there with me, and he's still with me to this day. That's the guy that be real hype in the corner, swerving the towel
Okay.
when I come out on fight nights. That's
All
KK.
right.
Yeah, that's my man.
having that relationship with him and having somebody in your corner like that that supports you, that's family, that's been with you through all the ups and downs of your career. How special is that to be with him all the way to this point?
It's just a blessing to have genuine people around me, and that believed in me. And it's crazy because well, I never knew him. He's an older guy. He's 40 some years old, and he was 19, 20, 21 when he got incarcerated. He did 25 years, and he
Okay.
came home and he got a warehouse job with my dad and nephew, which is my cousin, and he was talking about me. He didn't know who I was, but he remember like he said when he was in jail, he used to see the newspaper like about Chattanooga, Tennessee Golden Gloves, and I won that like 2004, 2005, 2006, 2007. I won it like 4 years in a row.
Mm-hmm.
So he came home talking about me and a couple of the local boxers that's from my city, and my cousin just so happened to work with him, and he
Okay.
connected us. And it was just like a dream come true to him. He didn't know me, but he wanted to work with me. And if I didn't get incarcerated, I wouldn't have led me back to Chattanooga because I had moved away to Chattanooga. But
Right.
once I got incarcerated, I had to come home and start
Yeah.
me from scratch. No promoter, no manager, and
Juice,
God brought us
bro.
through each other's
Juice
life,
ain't
man,
juice.
and we were just able to change
Ain't
each other's
juice
life, and
somewhere.
he's still with me to this day. He's a blessing.
Make that move out there to Las Vegas, and obviously at that point, you start building your career from that point going forward. How big was that transition to you going to Las Vegas and then working from that point on out there?
It was it wasn't an easy to move, man. It wasn't easy to leave my comfort zone, to leave my son behind, leave my mom behind, and I just had to take a leap of faith. And that's one thing my mama always told me I was gonna have to do, even when it came to college. Like, you gotta have faith, son. You gotta take a leap of faith. You know what I'm saying? You can
Mm,
do it. You can go play college ball. You can go survive on your own. I raised you right. She told me all those type of things to make me comfortable to go live on my own. And so yeah, it wasn't an easy thing, but it was just something that had to be done, and a lot of people don't do that. And since I made that move, that kept kind of motivated a lot of people, a lot of my peers from my city because nobody want to live nobody want to get comfortable being uncomfortable. But I'm
mm.
like the first one to show them that it can be done, and it's a brighter side to it. So I get a lot of messages, a lot of text messages from people, man, that just inspired and just motivated by the courage that I have. And I always tell them it's not you're not a failure unless you try. And if you do try something, you fail, then it's a lesson. But if you
Mm.
sit at home and you don't try out of scared and not having faith, then you're a failure.
You talk about the fact that that was not an easy transition. I think everything you just said is 100% accurate. So many people are not willing to make that big jump and that risk, risk in life that you don't know what's going to happen, but a lot of time ends up working out in the future. But for yourself, when you made that transition, you said it wasn't easy for yourself. So many people out there are going to say, you know what? No, it's not easy. It's out of my comfort zone. Why would you say it's the right move to make? Why should people get out of their comfort zone and go pursue something, even if it's not necessarily a guarantee for success?
Because it's only a failure if you don't try. If you do fail and you try, then it's a lesson. So why not go learn a lesson? If
Mm,
that's the worst thing that can happen, you're only gonna be a failure if you don't give yourself a try. I never want to be one of those woulda, shoulda, coulda guys.
right. As you're going through your pro career now, you went from Bullet obviously over to BoMac last year, made that transition. What led to that transition? Why did you decide to go with BoMac's team?
Uh, I want to give a salute to Bullet. I learned a lot of things from him. He came in my life at a perfect time, and I was with him from my eighth fight to my 13th fight. And, he
Right.
taught me what he taught me, and it was just a lot of things going on at that time. Rolly had just took this first loss to Javante, and I feel like that just affected everyone. And I felt like I was at a point of a little bit of stagnation, and
Okay.
I was just looking for a little bit more. I was trying to go to the next level, and I'm in Vegas by myself, so time waits for no man. So I didn't have time to like sit around and wait, you know, for something that I didn't know for sure was gonna happen. So I just had to find something that I knew was for sure, and I got connected with BoMac through a friend, and we just been rocking ever since. We clicked.
I know you're out there with them right now, and I want to just ask about this team because, in my opinion, when we're talking, especially in the American landscape, that's the number one team, in my opinion, in boxing. And you just look at the list of guys that work with BoMac and what he's put together and accomplished. How much would you say he's improved you and helped you as a fighter now since you've joined him last year?
I feel like he have elevated my game in a lot of ways, man. Just the main part of just being consistent and being there every day. That plays a big factor with getting better and climbing up the ladder in this sport. You got to work on things every day and be consistent. And he's a very consistent person. And it ain't just him; it's just all the coaches. Coach Bernie, Coach Red,
Right.
Coach Tudo. And everybody's very dependable. Everybody's gonna be there every day. And everybody had a championship mindset. They've been doing this for 2 decades, and they work speak for themselves through Bud.
I have to ask you, what's your favorite BoMac story so far to this point in time?
My favorite BoMac story.
Right.
Hmm. I think my favorite BoMac story so far is they said that Bud told them to quit their job, and he got them, and they believed in him, and they quit their job.
Mm-hmm.
And that was just like they let me know just like how much they believe in their fighters and the faith that they have in their fighters. And it's just mind blowing to me because they took that chance and he took them to the top. They took it- they took each other to the top.
You look at the upcoming weekend. I know this is not necessarily about yourself, but we know you got a lot of guys that's a part of your team out there fighting in Virginia. I want to give you a prediction. First of all, the main event, Keyshawn Davis will be fighting, headlining against Edwin De Los Santos. What's your prediction how that fight goes down?
Um, I feel like it's going to be a good fight. Everybody have good, tough opponents that's coming to win, and it's going to be a great fight for boxing. It's going to be exciting, and I expect for the B&B stable, my B&B stable mates to do what we do best. To win victorious and leave no doubt in the ring. I predict Keyshawn with a middle round stoppage.
All right. As for the rest of the guys, part of the team out there, I know Troy Isley, obviously the rest of the brothers, so on and so forth. Do you think it's going to be a clean sweep? Will all the guys, a part of the group, win this weekend?
Most definitely.
All right. I love that, man. Well, let's get into your most recent fights. Your most recent one came just a few months ago against Jose Luis Sanchez, 8th round KO for yourself. And I know that also had an obstacle leading up into that fight when your trainer obviously passed away. Walk us through that situation. And once again, how were you able to go out there and perform the way you did, even with the outside circumstances?
Yeah, BoMac brought Charlie Hustle into my life because BoMac live in Omaha, and
Right.
he come out to Vegas for camp, and I needed somebody that he could trust that could be my everyday training in Vegas, till he come to camp. So me and Charlie, we grew real close on that bond through BoMac. I used to pick him up and drop him off and things like that every day, and it was that was a big, that was a hard time with losing him, and it's just crazy because you never know what people be going through, man. They show up every day with all type of problems on their mind, you know what I'm saying? But they show up every day and they smile and they just, you know, and they be in your face and you never expect it. You never know what they going through, and it kind of made me feel all type of ways because it was like I don't was he not comfortable enough to talk to me about what was going on.
Right.
Maybe I could have talked him out of it. Maybe I could have told him something, So those type of things was what was on my mind leading into that fight, and I always knew that he wanted me to win, man. We worked and we talked every day. So my main goal was just to go out and just to win for him and myself, and I knew that would put a smile on his face, whether he was there physically or not.
Following that fight kind of leads up to the present time. So what we talked about in the very beginning of this interview, you sound most valuable promotions. And I just want to ask the backstory behind that. Was that something that was in the works for quite some time? Did it just all come together quickly, or how did this deal come together?
My manager Brandon Stump, just every fight since he came aboard, every fight he just harassed every promoter in the game. He told him that I was the guy, and after every fight he sent him my results. It's another second round knockout. Second round, I went on like a 7 fight second round knockout streak, and
Right.
those type of things just caught people's attention. And that last fight was a known opponent and durable guy, and nobody had really done him like I did him. And MVP, they tapped in before that fight with my manager and said we'll be watching.
All
And
right.
by the time the fight was over with, they sent a text saying let's talk Monday.
All right. And I'm guessing at that point in time, you guys got the deal done pretty quickly then?
Yeah, we just negotiating, and a couple of people was interested in me. Dana White, um, TKO. I believe Oscar was interested, but he never sent like no paperwork or nothing like that. But
Hmm.
Dana White and Jake Paul, they was making moves, and Jake Paul invited me out to the Katie Taylor weigh-ins,
Right. Okay.
and ever since then, just kind of like we just been negotiating and negotiating, and we did like a little vibe check, and like I said, I had already for some reason that's just who I wanted to go with. So once they tapped back in, it was just like I felt like it was just meant to be.
Let's head into your upcoming fight. You're just a few weeks out now. June 28th, Julian Rodriguez. He's 23-1. You obviously still have a couple more weeks until you prepare for that fight. But as you've breaking down Julian Rodriguez, what's your thoughts on your opponent as of this point in time?
Uh, he's a good guy. He's a good opponent. We grew up in the amateurs together. We both fought in the 2010 Junior Olympics tournament together, and I might have fought a weight class above him or something like that. But yeah, I remember him from the amateurs. He was a good amateur. He turned pro before me. All those guys turned pro before me. But I feel like that'll be a good name on my record once I do what I do best to him, and it's gonna be my coming out party. Perfect time, right timing, and
All right.
it's
So
just my time.
you said this is your coming out party. What can people expect? What's the statement that you want to make on June 28th that after the night everything's completed? What's the statement that you want everybody talking about Avious Griffin about on that night?
It's the next star. It's the next welterweight boxing star. What will be said at the end of that fight?
What's your prediction on how that fight goes down?
I do what I do best.
All right. I love that, man. Well, I also want to go into a couple more things before I let you go. One of which is your future. You're obviously 31 years old, but still you have a bright future ahead of yourself. And when you look at going forward now, you have a big opportunity on June 28th. But if we look at the next, let's say 12 to 18 months, even let's say going into 2027, where can we expect you to accomplish? What do you think you'll be, where will you be at by that point, by the time you come into 2027?
We should be we should have a world title within the next 2 years, if
All
not
right.
next year. But until that point, we're just gonna stay in the lab and we're gonna keep getting better. We're gonna just keep capitalizing off every moment and every opportunity that God presents.
I know your name has been in and out of the rankings currently, and obviously with this win on June 28th, you're probably right back in the top 15 again. Is there somebody that you'd want to fight after Julian Rodriguez? Is there somebody that you have your eye on at the welterweight division that you would like to go out there and fight?
No, right now I just have my eye on Julian Rodriguez and getting the job done, and this win right here set up everything else. You can't skip no step. I took the stairs to get here, so I'm not overlooking
Right.
nobody. I didn't take the elevator, so we're gonna just keep taking it step by step.
I love that, man. Well, I got one final question for you, Avius, and that's the question I like wrapping up every single interview with. That's talking about your legacy. When you talk about the day that you end up moving on from boxing, you step away from the sport, what do you want to be remembered for what you've accomplished both inside and outside of the ring?
You know, Nobody did it like Avious Griffin. Nobody. I didn't come from a boxing family, a boxing dad, a boxing city. I didn't come. I didn't get no vouchers. I didn't get no Floyd Mayweather pictures when I was 6, 7 years old. I didn't have no Zab Judah pictures. I didn't, and nobody just took this walk right here. I did it by myself, and I got myself noticed with hard work and dedication and God, and it'll just be one of those stories that nobody had done it like this before.
I love that, man. Well, Avius, I appreciate you for taking time to come on today, man. I can't wait to see what God's got in store for you in the future, and specifically on June 28th.
Thank you, man. Thank you for having me. God bless you, and make sure everybody tune in June 28th pay-per-view. Body drops. You know what's going on. It's the kid that did. Spit your mother wig.
Absolutely, man. I appreciate you taking time to come on today, man. You always welcome on. God bless.
God bless.